Just a little bit about me. My background is in public health. I've worked for both the states of Colorado and Oregon in cannabis regulation, cannabis policy, as well as community engagement to make sure that the policies that are coming through about cannabis are representative of the communities that are enacting that work and are feeling both the benefits and the harms of legalization. So I'm really so glad to see you all here tonight. Before we kick off, I've got a couple of housekeeping things and a few ground rules for our conversation. So housekeeping, today we're going to be discussing 3 agenda items in turn. The first, workforce development. Second, community investment. And third, locally owned business engagement. Our event will end promptly at 7:30. We will send a follow-up email to make sure we captured all of your questions, your ideas, your input. And to that note, if you're not speaking, go ahead and mute yourself. You can do so by clicking the microphone button on the bottom of your screen. It is muted when there is a line through the microphone. Please turn your camera on when speaking so we can see your lovely face. You can do so by clicking the camera button that says video or stop video on the bottom of your screen. A couple of ground rules for our conversation. We're going to ask a series of questions to prompt conversation. Each speaker that responds will have 2 minutes to speak. We will be timing them just to make sure that we can hear from everyone today. And if you have a question or responding to ours, please raise your virtual hand or type directly into the chat. You can do this by clicking the reactions button, which is a little happy face with the plus sign on it on the bottom of your screen. If you click it and then click raise hand, a little hand will come up in the corner of your screen, and then we'll know that Paul or Gina or James is looking for to respond to the question or has a question of their own. And finally, this can be an emotional issue, so we encourage civility to keep an open and thoughtful conversation happening here today. So let's get started. After the state of California and the city of Pasadena voted to legalize the commercial sale of cannabis, the city set on a path to develop reasonable and responsible policies. And each cannabis business applicant was required to submit a number of commitments to the city as part of their application. This included the community benefit plan, which details how each business will support, engage with, and hire Pasadenans. Our work together today is to identify how best to target those community benefit plans to support a growing and thriving economy, economy and community. So today we're going to focus on some of those community benefit plans topics. So like I mentioned before, workforce development, community investment, and local business support. So let's dive into workforce development. The workforce development is essentially a system of services and programs that are focused on preparing and placing workers in careers fit for the current economy. Most workforce development programming is developed from a perspective that assumes everyone has equal access and opportunity. But such an approach, however, does not account for the structural and institutional barriers to opportunity that continues to operate in American society. Racialized barriers don't just hurt individual racial groups, they hurt our economy as a whole. Developing a racial equity approach to workforce development can assist in changing that dynamic. And the city requires that Pasadena cannabis businesses commit to hiring Pasadena residents, people of color, that they're investing in training and they're investing in career development. And so to kick off our conversation about workforce development, you should see a poll pop up on your screen in a second. And we want you to take a look at this poll and click on what makes the most sense to you. So the question is, how well are Pasadena cannabis businesses doing with workforce development? Oops, I think that poll disappeared, Clarissa.
Just a moment, wrong one. There we go. There we go.
All right, so how well are Pasadena cannabis businesses doing with workforce development?
Sorry, what if you don't know?
If you don't know, that's okay. You don't have to answer. See, the numbers on this poll are a little messed up too. That's okay. We're looking for very well, good, okay, poor, and very poor. So go ahead and click your items, your response, and hit submit. And Clarissa, can we see those results, or is that something we should share afterwards?
Yeah, let's go ahead and share those results. I've just ended the poll. I'm going to go ahead and share the results. You should see those up on the screen.
Awesome. So kind of all over the place, really. So some are saying very well and good. Some are saying okay and poor and very poor. So yeah, that's something we want to talk about today. So what would you like to see Pasadena cannabis businesses do to support better recruitment of Pasadena residents that are people of color? So what would you like to see these cannabis businesses do better in terms of recruitment of Pasadena residents that are people of color? And that's an open question for all. So if you want to type a message in the chat or go ahead and raise your virtual hand or unmute yourself to let us to answer that question, we're ready for you.
So actually, we're not recording this meeting, and that was done intentionally for the purpose of facilitating open and honest discussion here this evening. So we really want everyone to be able and feel free to give as much feedback to us as possible.
And thank you, Gina, for asking to post the question in the chat. So I have posted it here. You see that you're unmuted. Were you looking to respond?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. No worries. Not trying to call you out.
No, it's fine. No, but I did want to say that it's licensing affordability that appears to be like the biggest issue for people of color, based on my experience and what I've been seeing.
Yeah, thank you. That little feedback happened there. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, Jessica. Hi, Clarissa. I'll chime in. I think a fabulous, let's see here. See, Pasadena cannabis businesses do support better recruitment of Pasadena residents of color is to have a mentor training program from seed to sale to open up the many opportunities that are within the cannabis industry beyond a bud tender, so that our community of color that has interest in working and knowing more about the cannabis industry can learn the different roles, the different positions that they can look into and be a part of within the industry. I think that would be a great program to implement.
Yeah, I love that idea. Is that something you've seen in other places that's been successful, or is that something that you're just, we need this? There's just a big gaping need.
You know, my mother was a resource specialist for Seattle Unified School District. So at the age of 12, I had to have a job as well as any of my friends. And she made sure that we were all a part of summer youth employment. And that gave me great opportunity. I got to work retail. I got to work with children, which led to a 20-year career working as a teacher. So I think that really opens up, you know, I'm very hands-on, and I need to see and be involved to learn what something is the best. So to be able to see, experience, and maybe even have like a day to just like be with someone who is in that position so you can ask questions or, just spend some time to really see what is really going on, I think is, and that's where that comes from in my past. So thank you for that question.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I think that's how many of us learn too. And how would we know beyond what we have experienced if we're not coming into contact with someone who can help us figure out where's my niche here? Leslie, I see that you've got your hand raised.
Hi, yeah. Oh, let me. So, hi everyone. I've actually worked a lot in Pasadena and a lot with their nonprofit organizations, such as like Ideal Youth and the Ambassador Program. And I just feel that these companies haven't really made their presence known, I feel like, as far as the workforce industry. Me specifically, I haven't seen any type of reach out to the community from these companies to go about hiring directly within our community. At least I haven't seen anything. From my own research, just seeing like the applicants, I have seen some of them are going to partner with these youth organizations or some type of partnership with an organization, but they haven't opened yet. So the current ones that are opened, I just haven't personally seen any attempt to really get involved with the community very much. They're in Los Angeles, they have it's called Indica, but it's spelled with a K instead of a C, I believe. And they pretty much, what they do is help people get into the industry. They have internship programs and things like that. So maybe that's something these companies can start to think about, is maybe starting an internship program and things like that. Like I said, I know one of them kind of already has like that in the process, but they aren't opened quite yet. So they're one of the ones waiting to be opened. But I think just like Miss London had said, just starting some type of program to get people into the industry and these companies so they can see all the opportunities that they have. Like she said, it's not just bud tending. There's a wide spectrum and there's so many other states they can work in as well. But me personally, I haven't seen any outreach from the current dispensaries that are open to hire anyone from the community. But yeah, I just think they should definitely try maybe an internship program. I feel like that would be a great eye opener.
Yeah, that's a fantastic suggestion. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, no problem.
And then I see Tim, Dodd, and Raul Reyes also have their hands up. And I think, Tim, you were first.
Yeah, hi. So I'm actually the owner of Sweet Flower, and so we are going to be opening, I hope, in the next few weeks in Pasadena. So one, I just wanted to, I think that the last speaker and also Miss London said it really well. I think it's about jobs. So we've actually held two job fairs so far in Pasadena. The last one we held at the Pasadena Community Coalition in North Pasadena about 2 weeks ago. And we advertised that in Pasadena Now, and Martin Gordon, who is our contact with the Community Coalition, advertised that in the Black Pages and some other places as well. We have a commitment to hire locally. We have a commitment that we've made to hire 50% locally and specifically from Pasadena's African American and Hispanic community, and we are serious about that. The second job fair I mentioned was just 2 weeks ago. The first job fair was in July of last year. We were hoping to be open earlier, but there's been a lot of, as some of you may know, there's been a lot of back and forth. People who were hired in Pasadena from that job fair, we put in our other stores in Los Angeles. But now, with the opening of our store, hopefully imminent in the next few weeks, we are looking for more people. So if there's interest, please I'll put my email in the chat and just send me whatever it is, and I'll connect you with Carlos Fermontes, who is our head of HR and is recruiting people for our store. The mentoring stuff is something that we take very seriously. So I mentor in Los Angeles through our academy personally. Our academy is a group of people who have set up to mentor for cannabis for social equity applicants specifically, but it doesn't have to be for social equity. And I'd love to do the same thing in Pasadena. CN Fleming is also on the line in this meeting, and CN is our head of development, and CN has been instrumental in working with Martin and some other people in Pasadena as well. I don't want to give an advertisement or anything like that for Sweet Flower. I'm just saying we are trying to do as much as we possibly can. We're a small local business. I live in LA. I have a funny accent. I'm not from here, but I've lived here more than half my life, and I love Los Angeles. It is home. I know Pasadena is not LA, but we have a commitment to all of the stores and all of the communities that we serve. And I take it very seriously and very personally. So, many times it'll be myself or CN will be involved. And last, it's about access. And I think it's about representation. So I think we're the only, I'll just say from my point of view, we are very focused. We've been a robust supporter of social equity in Pasadena. I've publicly stated that multiple times at many council meetings and encouraged the EdTech group last year to take up social equity, working with council members Kennedy and Hampton and others. And that is a real commitment from us. So, there are gaps here in equity, and I'll shut up now, but frankly, we're on the same page and we're going to try and do as much as we can in Pasadena. So I'll put my email in the chat, and please just hit me up. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Right at 2 minutes. Perfect. Raul?
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with, I think it was Leslie who brought it up. I do think there has to be more education or awareness of just the substance itself, because I think there's still, the negative idea, or just, because it has been, not legal for a long time. I think if there's more education or just something to help normalize, and if businesses are able to, pitch that in a positive manner. I don't know if the laws or anything in regards to the advertisement and marketing of cannabis, but I think that would really help, not just for the businesses themselves, but also for people maybe trying to replace other types of substances. That could potentially be something that could help, I think, in general. So that's it.
Great, thank you so much. And before we move on to our next question, I do see a couple of things in the chat that I do want to address and bring up. So Leslie mentioned we should hold a job fair in Pasadena for applicants. Another suggestion from Jacqueline Garcia is work with local job centers in Pasadena if they don't already. Sean Samet, my question was the firm hired to design a social equity program for implementation, or to research the current operations and see how they could do more for the community? I'm confused as to what is being studied, as it seems that was a grant that was was given to design a social equity program. Were you hired to study the current operations and to see if they could do better, or how a social equity program could be implemented, which would involve additional licenses for local community members? Yeah, thank you for this question, because, and I'll quickly answer it so we can move on. Is that yes, BOTEC has been hired by the city of Pasadena to look at what social equity programs should and could look like in Pasadena. Community engagement, community reinvestment, workforce development, as well as engagement with local businesses is a part of social equity, and that's the focus of our conversation today. Not to say that there will not be future conversations about other topics, but we wanted to make sure, given the broad depth of topics that we could have and the scope of topics we could discuss in social equity, we will never cover everything in one meeting. So we want to make sure that we are focusing on this particular concept right now, so we can move forward as part of this bigger overall plan. So thank you for that question. So our next question, I'm going to drop in the chat for everyone. And so this kind of follows up to some of the comments that were mentioned earlier, is what would you like to see Pasadena cannabis businesses do to support certification training, apprenticeship opportunities, worker entry program? Are there specific avenues that you're seeing or things that you see are an absolute need that cannabis business should be doing in this area to increase that education and training? Thank you. It looks like Carrington A, you've got your hand up. And then Leslie.
Hey, you guys.
Hey
Hi. I just wanted to appreciate Tim's honest response regarding the acknowledgement of some of the equity gaps already present in the process in Pasadena. As someone who sat with the mayor and council years before the ultimate resolution was passed, equity and the communication around it was already pretty absent. And so to see this sort of backhanded effort seems a little cart after horse, but I'm excited to still have the resources in place, and obviously to the new phase of awareness and straightening that the city of Pasadena is on. I'm excited about. One of the things that's necessary is a devotion of tangible funds. One of the things we realized, and my wife mentioned it at the top of our call, was licensing affordability. The sheer cost associated with it is going to drown out most minority involved components. I was someone who ran a social equity mining operation out front of a local supermarket and grocer, Rouse, during the Los Angeles application process. And we had to provide free tax services. We had to provide screening services. We had to, provide food throughout the process. We had to do everything we could to make it an accommodable experience so that our applicants who didn't have any information regarding the process can go from literally 0 to 100 in terms of full participation, excitement, awareness, understanding, and leveraging their other family and social community members to be able to help their project participation. So I think that the city's got to put their money where their mouth is. There needs to be a dedicated fund, not only to Botec's consultation fee, but also to the community process that takes place so that it covers the exact model that we just spoke about. It sets up a 10 in an area code where people who can qualify, who wouldn't get the information otherwise, who can't get it otherwise, are moving back and forth during their normal lives. It interrupts their day in a comfortable way. And from that point forward, it moves them through the entire process if they are interested in participating in a way that is not fee-based, but meritorious. And it pairs them up incredibly with one of the businesses that are doing it successfully in the city. And between the two of them Ebony and those Ivories, we'll see the unity and the beauty of Pasadena and their trees. God bless that little old lady.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I love that suggestion because that is so often what is needed for any type of licensing or any type of system where you're trying to enter a new or complicated bureaucracy, including getting a worker permit to actually work at a facility, to do the lab testing for a facility, to work at a grow operation, to work in a manufacturing operation. And that's, often it's dual systems of the city has a process, but also the state of California has a process. And it can be really confusing and really difficult to know where you even are in the process because it's not clear, particularly with the state level. Having worked in the state systems, I completely can hear you and saying that it is hard to understand the legalese to being translated to what is it that I need to know now, right? And so I appreciate you saying that because I think that's something when we worked with Coachella, the city of Coachella, that we made a recommendation for as well, is because we need to be thinking about how is this actually going to be accessible to the people who want to actually be doing this work. So thank you so much for that comment. And I see that Leslie has her hand up. Leslie?
Hi, kind of like playing off of what Carrington said, and even Raul, and back to what Miss London, finance is a really big issue when it comes to cannabis dispensaries. So if we are doing the social equity, that's just a big thing. Just capital to start one is very hard to obtain because, as we all know, federally, there's no grants, there's no loans, there's nothing we can get. So as the city, just like LA County did, they were giving a lot of grants to these social equity programs. But back to what Raul and Miss London had said, just the educational side is very important as well, because there is still a horrible stigmatism to cannabis. And then I know parents would definitely probably not like their children learning in high school about cannabis, but maybe if we partnered with like PCC and had like a cannabis entrepreneur classes, just anything to educate people more on the actual industry and then the process of getting into the industry, because it's not an easy industry to get into. A lot of people, there's not a lot of information on how the process goes. There's a lot of kind of like fall off, people aren't always kept up to date, people aren't always informed in a timely manner of just what's going on. So again, I think education is just really important, playing off what Raul said. And then back to Carrington, I hope I'm saying it right. Again, it's really important to just help people along with this process, because I've gone through the process myself and it can be very time consuming. It's a very slow process, and a lot of people can lose money in this process because thankfully Pasadena is not requiring people to have their location first, so people aren't paying for leases, but it's still a very costly process. And just again, if people could just be continuing to be informed, if there can be actual help financially for these people trying to get into the industry, I think that would definitely help. And then just continuing to educate people on everything that pertains to industry, especially when it comes to cannabis, because there is a big lack of knowledge. A lot of people think they know cannabis because they can grow it at home. But there's so much science behind it, and it's changing every day. And I think it'd be very important for us to educate not only our youth, but everyone. Everyone just needs to really understand the benefits of cannabis and the other options we have with cannabis and how it can really help and change people's life for the better.
Leslie, thank you for that. One of the things that came up when you were saying that was often we think of the retail space being the only business in cannabis business, right? And there are just so many ancillary businesses that are a part of this, and including, marketing, branding, including, edible products, including the actual products that are being sold in the dispensaries. And so I almost feel like I planted you, because my next question is, what would you like to see Pasadena cannabis businesses do to support entrepreneurs? I think this is a really exciting space that businesses or the city could be partnering with entrepreneurs to start to launch their brand, or to launch a business that is an ancillary business to the current retail spaces, or, be a part of the cannabis industry as a whole. So I've dropped it in the chat. What would you like to see Pasadena cannabis businesses do to support entrepreneurs? And Raquel, I can see ongoing community engagement workshops. I love that. Carrington? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand there. And then Leslie. Uh-oh. I can't unmute you from my end. Sorry about that, Carrington, but whenever you're ready.
My apologies. I'm here with my wife, who is super passionate about the conversation, but for some reason being incredibly timid. So instead, I'm fielding some of her incredible recommendations. So I'm going to alley-hoop it over actually to her as she speaks to you guys through a reevaluation process that might be really helpful.
Thank you. I love this teamwork happening here.
Okay, so my theory is that it's a lot of people that's in business and they're going through a lot of hardships, everything from community people threatening. You got your officers who want to do, whatever they do. You have the people struggling with the right understanding, but too busy to take time out to understand. So what has happened is that system is going, but in my opinion, it needs to be reevaluated to see what can be done to provide some kind of assistance to those people and make them aware that the assistance is available so they can at least stand a little stronger. Right? Can you make on?
Muted. Yeah, thank you, Kim. Do you have ideas about what that could look like?
No, I really just went from the view of what I have seen with my husband, because he has a few shops that he went through like different stuff with, and now he's trying to rebuild his whole sense and had to turn to other avenues and all that just to kind of keep himself protected, but not be able to move at the pace that he was already moving at or beyond. And so that, but not to mention, since that I have watched other businesses struggle as well in all type of areas. So it's more like just a general idea that they need to be reevaluated to see what support could be offered to them so they can push forward correctly, because they are in business and they are providing what is necessary to the community for real. Like, it's not like it's not happening. It is happening, but they're just struggling, and it's shedding. That's why it appears to be shedding down, coming up, back and forth. And that, in my opinion, is because nobody is taking a look at the people to see what else they need. That is available. It's just a lack of understanding and the time to be able to look into those resources and see what they are and just take the steps to obtain them.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And I think that's always a problem with connecting of resources, right? And that is very well heard. Thank you so much, Kim. We really should be listening to the business owners before making decisions that involve the business owners. I appreciate that. Leslie, I'm going to hand it over to you since your hand is up, but I do want to recognize Raul's rephrasing of what would be a better question and ask that question as well. So Leslie, please go ahead, and then I'm going to rephrase that question to the group. And you please feel free to answer it since you've got the spotlight.
That was so funny because that's what I was going to do. Raul had a great question. And I actually really appreciate that question because what can Pasadena do to support cannabis businesses? And I feel like the social equity program is the best way, because that's actually putting people in the community in success to actually own these dispensaries within our own community. You can't say any of the ones that are currently running are people who live within our community. I know there's a few on the list that are approved already who do live in the community, but not all of them are community members. And so we can't say that cannabis directly is something that is helping our community directly, because none of our community members are in the actual dispensaries running these places. So if Pasadena wants to support the communities, and cannabis, I feel like we need to start this social equity program. There are so many men and women who've gotten arrested for cannabis. I've seen it firsthand. People get put on probation. People are in jail because of cannabis that's now legal, and they've been suffering for years because they can't get jobs anywhere because they have this on their record. Yeah, it's gone down to a misdemeanor, but it's still there because they're on summary probation or any type of probation. So the fact that Pasadena never started a social equity program, it's kind of like saying, well, sorry that you got arrested for it, but we don't care. We're not going to help you. So for Pasadena not to start with a social equity program, it's really sad, because it's just like, who are we prioritizing? These big companies that have now taken over our city with cannabis? Or do we actually care about our community and helping the little people that have actually been affected in our city from cannabis and from these arrests, especially it's just, I think that's the best way Pasadena can help our cannabis is by actually helping our community to get in the industry. And the fact that we didn't start with the social equity program, again, it's a slap in the face to everyone who's been arrested and has been harmed by the illegalization of cannabis. And it broke my heart when I saw Pasadena starting to take the applications, but they didn't have a social equity program. So I think that's the best way Pasadena can actually help their community with cannabis.
Thank you, Leslie. I really appreciate that. I know we're moving just a touch off of the focus of today's meeting, but I think it's important to a contribution as part of this broader social equity conversation is what does this look like that the city is doing and that the current businesses are contributing to. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Raul, and then we're going to move into our next topic of conversation so we can make sure we're going to hit all of our big buckets today.
Yeah, I'll just be brief. But yeah, I mean, exactly what Leslie said. I think when you have folks that aren't from the community moving into the area to specifically open up these businesses, it kind of undercuts the people who have been here and who have done their best, but yet, the funds to start up the business, the resources to be able to file the paperwork and be able to put the logistics and the operations all in place, like that's not fair, right? So I think, again, right, what can the city of Pasadena do to support these businesses? And I mean, one thing is, right, the image of these places like mom and pop shops, like little shops, are not going to look like the Mac stores that we see today, that really fancy glass and all of that. And that might be discouraging and might be something that people aren't willing or unable to pay funds to be able to create an image like that. And also, I mean, it goes back to the education part, right? The socialization and the acceptance of cannabis. But kind of just throwing thoughts out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think so. Our next, Carrington, go ahead, and then we're gonna move on quickly, just because I want to make sure we hit these other topics too.
Yeah, mine is really quick. I always suggest whenever we're thinking about governance, let's think about the caviar exception or the champagne exception, as well as our low-income one. So in this case, it would be tax incentives. Most places, in Pasadena is one of them, they've got a gang of tax incentives for large, big businesses bringing in significant revs. I absolutely think that a component could be sort of moving beyond the application filtering process, thinking about a dozen of these guys in operation, thinking through a 5-year tax window. I know that might not necessarily go over well with some of the other operators, but thinking through a 5-year tax window where a social equity applicant, because of the years of distress that they're coming from, and they're not coming from a treasure chest of economic wealth having already been built or substantiated by the business, but thinking through a 3 to 5 year window where they would actually be able to get on their feet and have a tax reprieve. Maybe not the entire bill, but potentially 50 to 70% of it comparative to their non-applicant operatives. It could mean the world of a difference for the way that they're able to scale beyond that, and the way they're able to turn direct investment back into their community. Because what we do know statistically is that social equity applicants, when they do move into operation, not only are they a better investment for the community, they also are a better investment for local municipalities, because they themselves put in more free dollars of their own gain profits and income back into social services and projects that never hit our radar. So that's just my thought.
Yeah,
tax windows and incentives.
Yeah, and I love that. That's a very well heard suggestion.
I oversee our distribution across all of California for Sulo Distro. We provide product to hundreds of stores in California. So we have a pretty good pulse on the stores that do really well with these topics, and the stores that hurt because of these topics. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to advocate here is, kind of a little bit of what everybody's been talking about with regards to, the long-term play of how a cannabis retailer can provide community support, and then how the city of Pasadena could provide community support. But the reality is that a lot of these stores need something a little bit more immediate, right? They need some support that helps them with things that matter to the community. And we've seen a couple of stores like that are like in some of these areas where you might have some, more impacted community engagement, positive or negative, where security is a big risk, right? I've seen a lot of stores get robbed. I've seen a lot of stores, get victimized. And these are business owners that live in the community that are trying to do things right. And then they come in and so what is the city of Pasadena doing? I think from a social equity standpoint, if you got somebody that's coming in and opening a store in those areas and has, put all of their money into that, I would hope that, there's some kind of immediate short-term plan to provide some level of security by the police department. There's some cities and agencies that don't do that, number one. The second thing is what kind of funding do these stores, can they get for, inventory financing, things of that nature that I know that a lot of these social equity stores are looking for, don't have the resources to pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of inventory that they have to hold and wait for that to be sold. So that those are all the things that, to me, like from an immediate standpoint, besides the long-term play of what social equity is all about, what can the city do to help provide a resource to give these partners, when it comes to a social equity program, to give them a fair chance at winning here, right? And not set them up for failure. I guess that's more of my long-term question, but with an immediate impact that the stores can benefit from going into this. So like from a social equity perspective, I would love to see the stores not just get approval because of social equity, but also seek out a benefit because of social equity. So if you want to give other stores that don't have a social equity partnership first dibs, that's fine. But if you do give social equity, they should be in a position where they can get, better, security resources. Maybe there's a loan that you can do for security. Maybe there's something that can be, co-op with the city for security or resources that the city can do to train the stores on how to better provide security for their stores, and maybe funding for their stores and inventory financing for stores. Maybe it's not something the city has to directly spend on, but can you provide those resources so the stores can buy inventory and fund it? Because I think that's the biggest challenge I see with a lot of our stores that we work with, is that it's not about getting it started. It's about keeping it going. I mean, you could get the money to get your licenses and all those things done, but they can't keep the store operating because they run out of money and cash flow because they have to pay employees, all of these other things, above the line. I know, Tim, you know this because, Sweet Flowers is one of the stores that is, it costs a lot of money to run a store. And
I am going to have to call time just because I want to make sure. I think you're making incredible points, and I want to continue to hear from you. We're at the 2-minute mark. Just want to make sure we're hearing all of
I'm good. I'm done. That was my point.
Thank you.
Proceed. I just wanted to call it out. I was waiting for a long time, so I'm good.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, Raul, I have you up next.
Yeah, thank you. So I think to your question about the nonprofits, that's like a dicey situation, just because it depends on what the stance of the board is for the nonprofit. Like, are they comfortable with accepting the donation, which then has to be like disclosed, and then what are people's perception of it. So going back to my thought earlier that it's still not looked upon favorably, so that's kind of an issue, right? But to the poll that you asked about what can the cannabis business do for community contributions, I think my selection was providing space for community engagement, because I think the way to be able to normalize something like this is through socialization, by having people meet together. And honestly, if anyone can take this idea and run with it, but like, how you have like food festivals, maybe having something like that where vendors can come, small business owners of the cannabis industry, bringing food trucks and doing some type of event like that. And if Pasadena would be, open to, and then there you go. What can the city do to help out the businesses? So just putting all those thoughts together. Yeah, I mean, that's it for me.
Thank you. All right, Gina, look into what types of nonprofits or community groups should Pasadena businesses, cannabis businesses in the city be donating to? You're up, my friend.
Nice. So the two organizations that came to mind is specifically Day One. They're located near City Hall, and another coalition called the Pasadena Complete Street Coalition. They've been working on transportation and making our streets safer. And I just know that in the past, they've worked with the city around trying to get some of the cannabis funding to fund some of the active transportation work here in Pasadena. Our streets are unsafe. I think late last year, a woman got hit by a car and unfortunately passed away. And so I believe like these organizations have tried to pressure the city to get some of that funding to work on this. And when speaking with some of the executive director at Day One, like he himself spoke about if some of that funding could go to these programming that affect children, making sure that the streets are safe to get to and from school, or just even walking through their neighborhood. And some of the active transportation programs that they want to fix is specifically focused on Northwest Pasadena and some of our like more dangerous streets like Lake Avenue. So I just wanted to highlight Day One and the Pasadena Complete Street Coalitions as two organizations that would benefit from some of these fundings. They could continue some of these plans they have and hopefully potentially activate this plan that's been around since 2015 that the city hasn't activated because of lack of funding.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very concrete and deserving organizations, it sounds like. Thank you. Carrington, I've got you up next. Or maybe Kim. Oh, I just mean the woman behind the man.
Okay. Are you sure? Okay, no worries. Hey guys. So my quick thoughts on how best to use this money. I'm reflecting on an organization I was a part of in Miami called the Children's Trust. It was a simple fund. We've got the residents of the county to essentially agree to tax themselves, and then we use that base to be able to provide a series of micro grants to community organizations, focusing on children's programs specifically. All we had to do was just release a RFP requirement specification, and the community approached us with their best approaches and their best solutions. Some of them were already implemented, and some of them were vision programs. And from there, we just allocated dollars and monitored the success of some of the met goals. So I'm just recommending, I think that this money needs to be thrown into a pot. The operators need a few folks on it. City government needs a few folks on it. Local nonprofits need a few folks on it. And that board meets once a month to hand out micro grants. And these are really simple applications that local community organizations that are already supporting the existing population can go to and submit for emergency funding or regular reoccurring funding.
Visionary. I love this. Thank you. Thank you so much, Carrington. Leslie,
Oh, my pleasure.
I've got you up next.
Hi. Okay. So,
Last little,
go ahead.
my apologies. Last note on the do-good dollars. The do-good dollars need to be separate from the tax dollars. So that way, if we're providing a requirement and a timetable for tax incentives or tax requirements to begin, the do-good dollars still have a different timetable. So social equity applicants who are supposed to be benefiting from those programs are contributing to those pots, but they're not necessarily having to do so immediately when the business begins operation. But those two process payouts should be different. Their fees and taxes and their do-good dollars should be different.
Thank you. An important distinction. All right, Leslie, go ahead.
I would just like to say, definitely kind of playing off what Ivan was saying. If we do like a social equity program in Pasadena, they're not going to be really able to afford to donate actual like money. And, playing off what Raul said, can they actually accept that money federally? I get it state-wise, we're within legal laws, but federally, there's, still that gray area. But as far as definitely donating time, I definitely think they should support nonprofits such as like Ideal Youth. I agree with Gina with Day One. They could definitely educate a lot of people on just the educational on this is really important. Another one would be the ambassadors program. Let me see. There is also, I had another one, the Rose program as well. There's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of nonprofits that would benefit from the tax revenue, where the city is going to need a breakdown when they get that budget and get all that tax money. I really think the city should definitely allocate it to these nonprofits and really push the education of cannabis and definitely give it back to our schools too. Our public schools are sadly suffering because of low enrollment. And it's sad because a lot of schools are going to be closing. A lot of kids are losing transportation and having to move schools. And I definitely feel it's a burden upon families. And if the city definitely allocates that money there too, that would definitely help parents and take that pressure off them as well. And
Yeah.
I think that would just be very, very crucial.
I don't want to take up your 2 minutes, but I agree with what you just said, that like a lot of these cannabis dispensary owners that I've met.
And I'm sorry, I am going to ask, I do want to hear from you, but I want to make sure that Leslie finishes her time.
Sorry,
I definitely I get what I've been saying, just because it's, as cannabis owners, especially social equity owners, we become social. You have to understand what it means to be a social equity owner. We are low income. We don't have the capital to stay afloat. Our goal is to stay afloat. Profit, that is not something we see, because we are fighting against illegal dispensaries as well as, these big, beautiful shops as well. Like, us mom and pop ones, it's hard, so again, that's why I say it's important for the tax revenue, especially if we're not going to be seeing a tax cut anytime soon. Make sure my taxes is going to something that I actually care about, which are these programs that I participated in, I love, and I've been passionate about, because I am someone who lives in the city. And again, it's a slap in the face that Pasadena did not start a social equity program. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Leslie, I appreciate that. We've got Tim and his hand up next, and then Ivan, and then Brent.
Yeah, I actually agree with everything that was just said. We didn't make the rules. We came into Pasadena, when the rules were written. So I do think there's a distinction to be made between commercial cannabis operators, that would be Essence, Harvest, Sweet Flower, I guess, in the city, and social equity applicants. And I think it's incumbent on people like us to help. And that, I think, means mentoring, entrepreneurship, money, tax dollars, plus, the tax dollars are going to come to the city regardless, right? but also some community investment programs that are meaningful, which means I think all the things I said, plus, frankly, some support. What I don't want to see happen personal view, Los Angeles has a social equity program which has required a lot of real estate. It's been expensive. It's also been, frankly, used by predatory lenders and predatory investors, most of whom are not social equity applicants, to kind of support social equity, and that has fared really badly. Mm-hmm. Another thing I'm concerned about is the secondary market. I've already been offered 2 Pasadena social equity licenses, and they don't even exist yet. But people are trying to trade these things or make up things. I'm just saying, without any attribution, we get a lot of inbound stuff, as an operator in Los Angeles. And so I get people calling all day with, I got this license, I have this license. I've had 2 people call me about social equity licenses in Pasadena. They don't even exist yet. So I think you need to have strong safeguards. You need to have some community funding. The city of Pasadena needs to support these things with money, skills, entrepreneurship. And to Ivan's point, there's a bunch of stuff that's really tricky in cannabis. And I think you guys know this. Break-ins, it's expensive. There's a lot of tax. There's a lot of illegal operators still. All that stuff is tough. And it makes things really hard for commercial operators and particularly social equity applicants. And I want to help. But obviously, this needs to be a well-regulated, and I've said this multiple times, robust. It needs to be robust, a robust program. If the city's going to do it, it needs to be well-regulated. And the secondary market where these things are sold and exploited needs to stop.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Next, we have Ivan and then Brent. Ivan, I know you didn't have your hand up, but you had hopped in earlier, and I wanted to make sure that you had space and time.
I know I didn't want to be rude, but I was just I was agreeing. I just wanted to say yeah. That's all. I know
it's so hard on digital spaces. You're just we can't. Everybody can hear us all at the same time. Yeah.
Look, here's the deal, right? I don't have an agenda. The only thing I wanted to talk about today is I don't understand the logic with the city of Pasadena saying that stores can't sell beverages. To me, I have no understanding of why that's a rule. That was number one priority. But the reality is that everything that's talking about right now is the stuff that I see every day with our stores and our vendors, and the stores that struggle the most are those stores that are what everybody has been describing as not the corporate, not the well-funded, it's the social equity stores that are truly social equity that need the help. And sometimes the cities have abandoned them because there isn't money to support them or whatever that story might be. And I just don't want City of Pasadena to be that way, right? I just want to make sure that City of Pasadena has a fair chance to say, hey, look, if security is important and risk management is important and inventory funding and, reducing the risk of stores going out of business is important, then that's where I think the City of Pasadena should take a leadership role. And I think you guys have done an outstanding job at being a model city for many reasons. And I think this is something that can go a long way for the City of Pasadena to drive that model and putting security first, and also putting, inventory funding and equity into the stores. Not equity, but just making sure stores are operating successfully, right? I think that's the only story I got.
Thank you, Ivan. I appreciate that. And we've got Brent with our last comment. But of course, there have been so many put into the chat, so I appreciate everyone doing that as well. So Brent?
Yes, ma'am. So sorry I'm late. I don't know the full scope and everything, but I wanted to chime in with my thoughts. I recently relocated to Cali. I'm a veteran. and I want to open my dispensary out here. And the way I see it could be done is, as I put in the chat, like I want to do like a Green Bay Packers type mentality where it's kind of community owned, but in the interest of like tax dollars and things of that nature, I haven't gotten in the weeds of all that. But what I would like to see done is, you know, like we use cannabis veterans, you know, myself, I know a few others, as in lieu of, you know, prescription meds that they want to give us and whatnot. So another aspect is, you know, the homeless community. So if we have, I know we do, we have empty, basically vacated military bases that we could gather up, all willing, homeless, whatever. The facilities are there, the buildings are there. There are a bunch of nonprofits. Everybody could throw money at this stuff and have, you know, things in place that we could relocate the homeless, which is also security issues and things of that nature. So you could also use tax dollars that are being used to use small businesses for security companies. Like the government is required to basically hire, you know, small businesses, women, veteran, minority owned, etc. So why not use some of that money to contract security companies for small businesses to use around to support other dispensaries and things of that nature? So you're not pulling police resources away from, you know, the day to day, and you're satisfying the need that the government is required to do, because a lot of these contracts are going on basically assumed, like nobody's doing anything with it. Nobody knows anything about it. Somebody could start a company this way, you know. It's just things I'm throwing out, things I've thought about, you know, and I'm sorry I'm late to all this and whatnot, but I just wanted to throw that in there as a quick thought as I'm just getting into the whole process and whatnot. So thank you, guys.
Brent, thank you so much. And again, I feel like I'm planting you all because we are talking about local business support next as our next big topic of conversation. Because again, when we look at the goal of social equity, it's really to ensure that people from communities disproportionately harmed by cannabis prohibition and discriminatory law enforcement benefit from cannabis legalization. And there are opportunities, but there are limited opportunities within cannabis retail businesses themselves. But there are a number and a ton of ancillary businesses that can benefit from this new business kind of model entering our systems. So unlike many cities in the US, the city of Pasadena actually requires that current cannabis business licensee holders commit to working with local businesses as much as possible. And between launching new retail stores and keeping them running well, we all know there's a lot of contracting to build, landscape, market, advertise, delivery, local grows, manufacturers, security services, as Brent noted, accessory items like bongs, bowls, trays, and training providers. And often these businesses are smaller, they're more family run, they're niche businesses that are trying to get in this market. And they're able to be successful with a smaller budget than is needed to launch a retail business. And so I want to ask you all, you know, when we look at what we want Pasadena and Pasadena businesses to do, what would we like to see Pasadena and cannabis businesses do to support those other Pasadena businesses? What's needed? All right, yes, we've already got 2 hands up. Brent and Leslie. So Brent, just so since you were late, a couple of the ground rules, we'll give everyone 2 minutes at time, and I'll send you a little chat to let you know you're getting close to time. And we do ask, we kind of keep it in kind of answering this general question, although obviously so many of these issues are so connected, right? So Brent?
I got you, and that's my apologies because I had no idea my hand was still raised. So I can, I will alleviate that and, you know, recuse my time to someone else. I'm sorry.
Okay, Brent cedes the floor. Leslie?
Hi. Definitely keep it local. That's Pasadena is full of locals. Like this is our city, you know. We go to these places every day. You know, everyone knows each other. It's a very small city. People have been here for a very long time. So if you really want to help these businesses, stay local. You know, as much as you can, shop local. I understand you can save money by getting it cheaper somewhere else. I get that. Everyone wants to save a buck. But if you really want to support these businesses, stay local and support these businesses any way you can. Definitely partnering with them, you know, as much marketing wise as you can. Again, Pasadena, we're all about being local. We like to go to our local places. We have these beautiful restaurants we love to go to, partner with these restaurants, you know. That's definitely something that Pasadena is kind of known for. Partner with Roseville any way, shape, or form you can. You know, just to stay local. Help these locals, because these are the people that are going to be supporting you. And then as well as you have to realize on the outer cities, there's not a lot of cannabis there. So we can draw in, as a cannabis company, these outside people into Pasadena to help shop at our local stores, to help support our local mall, the Paseo, our restaurants. You know, if we can bring in these people that don't have cannabis allowed to them, Monrovia, Arcadia, the closest dispensary outside of Pasadena is what, Glendale, Alhambra. So you have Temple City, you have all these people around us who don't have something, and we have it, you know. We need more. We need more dispensaries. I think that would be great, because pulling in all these people are going to help support our local businesses, you know. So I think that's the best way. And that's all I got to say. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Leslie. Luna?
Well, I think Pasadena can do more to support other businesses through collaboration instead of outsourcing, similar to what Leslie was saying. I think in Pasadena, a lot of it, we're definitely a buy local community in the way that we speak, but are we actually that in action? And I think that the city of Pasadena could do more with having the Rose Bowl and having the Pasadena Convention Center available as opportunities to hold trade shows, or opportunities to hold like something even more than a trade show, but where you can bring, you know, where businesses can bring their business out, like they do the what is it called, like the restaurant week, where they do that. And they have, like, I know City of Arcadia does one at the Arboretum, and I know Pasadena does it at the Rose Bowl, where they bring, you know, all the local restaurants together so that you can try all the restaurants in one place. So I think we can do that with other local Pasadena businesses, where you can have a section of, these are your real estate companies, these are your cannabis companies, these are your local tax companies, or what have you, you know, and maybe create opportunities for us to all, for the people in the community to not have to travel all over the community to know that there are these other options available for them to participate in and patronize. So I think that collaboration would be really great amongst the Pasadena businesses. And since we have the space to do that, we have space, the Rose Bowl, we have the convention center, we have Central Park. So we have several different, you know, spaces to be able to host those types of events. And I feel like in business to business opportunity, it's just a lot of opportunity for collaboration. I know there are, for example, restaurants who will hold tequila tasting. Well, if we can pair that tequila tasting with collaborating with another business that has X. So now we're bringing the tequila tasting restaurant is promoting the other business that they're bringing in to co-host and collaborate for these different types of events together. So we do more business collaborations. I think that can be a way that we can cross promote and help each other.
Beautiful, Luna. And you finished right at 2 minutes. I feel like you had a timer going internally. Thank you so much. I thought that, what an incredible, really creative idea to be thinking about supporting local businesses by starting introducing us to one another, right? Thank you. Ivan, and then Tim, and then I've got one more question for you all before we wrap up.
I will clock myself. Jess. I will regulate myself. Luna, you took me to the moon. Luna in Spanish is moon. So, but by the way, like Palm Springs is doing something like this, right? The city of Palm Springs has embraced cannabis consumption. They've opened up lounges. West Hollywood has opened up lounges. National City has opened up lounges. This is the type of cannabis acceptance that a lot of cities have adopted. But even if Pasadena isn't ready for that yet, I get it. But I think what does make business sense is what Luna just described is, bringing in some of these larger venue controlled environments where you can do an expo, even if it's like a cannabis drinks expo or Hall of Flowers or a trade marketing event where maybe it's just packaging or whatever that may be, right? The Rose Bowl offers the venue that can provide tax revenue for the city, resources for the city, and then come back and give that money in a way back to the vendors that are in the area, the retailers in the area, and give them something back. Because I do think, and I feel strongly about this, that a lot of these vendors and retailers are struggling with margins. They're struggling with profit margin. They don't make a lot of money on their side, and they struggle with raising capital. They struggle with keeping the store afloat, paying rents, and all these things. But I feel like social equity is a big important factor for a lot of stores to survive. But I feel like this would be a great opportunity for the city of Pasadena, because the city of Pasadena has amazing venues that can be capitalized on across the board that could be used for this purpose. It just has to be controlled. It just has to be regulated. It just has to be, done in a way that doesn't impact the community in a negative way. And the city of Palm Springs has done this exemplary. And I think this is a good opportunity for us to talk about this and socialize that idea. That's all I got.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We've got time for one more question or one more comment from Tim, and then we're going to move on to our final stage of our meeting, so we can end promptly at 7:30 as we've promised you all. I want to respect your time. Thank you so much, Tim.
I'm going to be really quick. Thank you. First, I think community engagement with businesses is just fundamental to the success of any business. And you can't be successful in cannabis if you're not talking to your community, including the businesses that are around you. So we do that everywhere. I'm really looking forward to doing that in Pasadena as soon as we can get open. Second, a point that was made a long time ago was that this is not just about retail. There are lots of entrepreneurs in Pasadena who are building brands. And I think that every operator in Pasadena should be required to carry those brands at their stores. Like if you are a Pasadena grower, you should know that you have an output in distribution footprint into Pasadena. Now it's, that seems to me to be a very basic, fundamental avenue that you can therefore build a really successful Pasadena cannabis industry, which is what I think we're really trying to talk about. And without that commitment, Pasadena entrepreneurs are going to have to go and do all that stuff that you have to do everywhere in LA, like go and knock on the door 7 times. Like, let's make that one knock.
I love that idea. One knock. I love that. It really fits in with, there's a comment where Cal said, culture of one city and one community. I love that. And one knock. Thank you. Well, thank you all so much. You really have really brought a very robust conversation today. And I know we were limited in scope and what we could cover. And clearly we didn't even get, everybody's thoughts and opinions on this forum in. So we will be following up with a survey, just a quick, hey, what did we miss? And we're capturing all of your comments in the chat to make sure that we are really capturing what this group of community members is really dedicated and thoughtful group of community members has brought to the table to say, Pasadena, we can do this, we can do this so well. So I appreciate all of you saying that. We have about, I think, 3 minutes left, and then, gosh, it feels really terrible to just offer up 3 minutes to talk about any other topics that y'all wanted to talk about before we kind of sign off for the evening. So I see Ivan has unmuted, so I think Ivan might get our 3 minutes.
Sorry, you're not. It will take 2 seconds. Is it fair to ask everybody to share like their contact information amongst the group so we can kind of move this topic forward? I mean, 26 people for the city of Pasadena. I think it's fair that we care, right? So, is it cool with you guys if everybody shares their information?
Well, how we do this?
I was going to say, feel free to share your information there in the chat with everybody. After this meeting, I can reach out to everybody who's registered here. And if you'd like to have your information shared with the group, it'll be an opt-in. So let me know, yes, you want to share, you want to be connected with the other group members here, and we can get your information shared to one another in the next couple of days.
Okay.
So that way nobody's information is shared that they don't want to be shared, but that you'll have the opportunity to share your information, and I can help organize that amongst us.
Thank you, Clarissa. I'm good with sharing my info. I think it looks like everybody's sending their emails, so it looks like the general consensus from the team is that we're good to go. So I don't know if is there any objections to sharing?
Well, I think, instead of putting folks on the spot, I think let's go with the plan suggestion.